Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're diving straight into a really interesting discussion, sparked by a long read over on Rugby Pass.
Ah, yes, the one called How Misunderstood Rassie Erasmus is Rolling Back the Clock.
Exactly that one.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack this fascinating debate around, innovative bench selections in rugby.
Specifically, this focus on using a high number of forwards on the bench, 6, maybe 7.
Yeah, we'll look at the arguments for and against and what it might mean for the future of the game. It's quite a hot topic.
Definitely.
And hey, if you're enjoying this kind of in-depth look, make sure to subscribe to Rugby Obsession for more of our rugby analysis.
So this Rugby Pass article, it really kicks off by highlighting the criticism from Matt Williams, former coach, now pundit.
Right.
He's been quite vocal about Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus using 6 or even 7 forwards on the bench.
This isn't entirely new, though, is it? It goes back a bit.
Well, the article pinpoints that 2023 World Cup warm-up against New Zealand. That's when it really caught everyone's attention.
Ah, the 7-1 split. South Africa used 7 forwards, 1 back on the bench.
And they won pretty decisively, 35-7. That result, amplified the whole discussion.
Okay, so Williams raised some eyebrows then. But the article mentions his concerns really sort of ramped up after South Africa beat Ireland in July 2024.
Yeah, he went on a podcast, apparently, and argued that bringing 6 forwards on at once, well, that wasn't the point of the replacement laws.
His argument being they were designed for safety, primarily.
Exactly. He felt it kind of abuses the game's ethos, its traditions. You end up potentially with 14 forwards on the field.
Which he sees as discriminating against backs. Not the game the ancients designed, as he put it. A very evocative phrase.
It is. But what's really interesting is how the Rugby Pass piece sort of flips this argument.
How so?
It suggests that Erasmus's strategy, and let's be fair, France and others are doing 6-2s, sometimes 7-1s too, it might actually increase the variety of shapes and sizes in a team.
Okay, that's a fascinating counter-argument. How does the article back that up?
Well, it looks at the weight differences in Six Nations teams. Forwards versus backs.
Mm-hmm.
France, for instance, apparently has the biggest average difference. Forwards are like 29 kilos heavier on average.
Wow, that's significant.
But then the article points to the success of smaller, really agile backs.
Yeah.
Like France's own Louis Bielbieri. He's only listed at 79 kilograms.
But he's incredibly effective. Quick, great footwork.
Precisely. So the argument is maybe this forward-heavy bench doesn't actually discriminate against smaller backs. Maybe it enables a different kind of balance.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. And the article draws this really neat parallel. It looks back to the late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
Remember when New Zealand and Australia started producing those huge, athletic outside backs? Guys who could probably have played in the pack in the amateur days?
Oh, yeah. Lotu Kiri, Wendell Saylor, Jonah Lomu, obviously, the prime example.
Exactly. The article argues that that era actually brought rugby union closer to rugby league in terms of just, well, sheer size across the park.
Okay, I see the parallel. So if that was one major shift in player type.
Then perhaps, the article suggests, what Erasmus is doing another kind of evolution, but maybe it's pushing back against that uniformity of size?
So instead of everyone just getting bigger and bigger?
Right. It suggests South Africa's strategy is actually a return to maybe some older rugby union ideas, prioritizing smaller, seriously quick players in the back three.
Like scat backs in American football, the article calls them.
Yeah, that's the term they use. Fast, elusive runners.
So in the South African context, we're talking about players like Cheslin Colby, Kurt Lee Arends.
Quan Horn, Edwil van der Merwe, even Roscoe Speckman sometimes fits that mold.
And the article points out it's not just South Africa, Bielbieri in France, Darcy Graham in Scotland, these explosive, smaller wingers.
Yeah, it seems to be a bit of a trend or maybe a re-emergence.
Which leads to the question, where did Rassie Erasmus get this appreciation for these kinds of players? Was there a specific influence?
The piece offers a possible origin story, I suppose. It speculates maybe it dates back to his time as a technical advisor for Wales.
Oh, interesting. Why Wales?
Well, who was the star winger for Wales back then? Shane Williams.
Ah, of course. Smaller guy, incredible agility, absolutely lethal finisher.
Exactly. Maybe seeing Williams's impact up close gave Erasmus an appreciation for what that kind of player can do against bigger defenses.
And it's not just about having pace and space, is it? The article connects this to the current laws, too.
Specifically the high kick laws.
Right. The fact that the receiver doesn't get that protected pocket anymore, it makes contests much more unpredictable.
And that, the article argues, increases the value of these really agile players. The ones who can react quickest to a loose ball, a deflection.
They can just pounce on those opportunities.
Yeah. And just a reminder for everyone listening, if you're finding this tactical breakdown interesting, do hit subscribe on Rugby Obsession to catch all our deep dives.
Good point. So the article gives examples of this in action.
It does. It mentions Curtly Arenzi's try against France in the 2023 World Cup quarterfinal. Remember that?
Vaguely. Refresh my memory.
High ball contest, messy ball. Arenzi wasn't directly involved in the aerial battle, but he read it perfectly, scooped up the loose ball, and boom, try. Pure agility and anticipation.
Right, exploiting the chaos.
Exactly. And it also mentions Thakir Abrahams for the Sharks, scoring those length-of-the-field tries from kick returns. Just sheer pace and elusiveness.
So tying it all together, what's the sort of final conclusion from the Rugby Pass piece?
The big takeaway seems to be that these 6-2-7-1 benches aren't necessarily about creating uniformity like maybe Williams fears.
Okay.
Instead, it's about creating a specific combination, pairing these huge, powerful forwards, often brought on fresh in the second half, with these smaller, faster, more agile backs.
A contrast in styles within the same team.
Precisely. The article argues it might actually be rolling the clock back towards some of rugby's amateur roots in a way, resisting that trend towards physical uniformity we saw earlier, the one maybe closer to rugby league.
That's a really thought-provoking perspective, resisting homogeneity.
Yeah, and it finishes with a quote from Arthur C. Clarke, the science fiction writer.
Oh, what's the quote?
Something along the lines of how every revolutionary idea goes through stages. First, people say it's crazy, then they say it's obvious. It implies Erasmus's ideas are maybe in that first stage for some people misunderstood.
Huh. Facing resistance before potential acceptance? Makes sense for innovative tactics.
It certainly frames the debate in an interesting light.
It really does. It's all incredibly thought-provoking stuff. We genuinely love to hear what you listening think about this approach to bench selection. Does it enrich the game? Does it go against his spirit?
Yeah, drop your opinions in the comments section.
So that was our deep dive into the Rugby Pass article, looking at the whole Rassie Erasmus bench strategy debate.
We've explored the criticisms, the counter-arguments, and sort of chewed over what it might mean for the game moving forward.
Thank you so much for listening to this Rugby Obsession deep dive.
We really appreciate you tuning in.
And we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode. Make sure you subscribe to Rugby Obsession so you don't miss it.